Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for the quarterly meeting for the Bladensburg Bus Garage Reconstruction Project. Next slide. Today's meeting is both in person and online. It's a hybrid meeting, so for those of you who are in person, we ask if you can hold your questions until the Q&A period. If you simply raise your hand during that Q&A period, we'll come to you with the microphone. You can speak clearly so that those who are online can hear you. We would greatly appreciate it. Give the presenters an opportunity to answer your questions. If you have any follow-up questions, we'll try to get to them. If we can't, we'll come around. There are 3 Q&A sections, including one at the end, so we will get to your question. Next slide. For those of you online, you can raise your hand. You can type in the chat that you have a question, or you can type the question itself into the chat. We will read the question if you choose to type it in. If you raise your hand or say you have a question, we will bring you off mute so that you can ask your question online. Next slide. So with that, next slide. So with that, I'm going to kind of run through the agenda, which will be introductions, which will be handled by Maya momentarily. We'll do a project overview and updates, construction updates, and then we'll close with the look ahead for the next quarter and the end of the year. So with that, good evening, Maya.
Good evening, Denzel. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. Let me try this again. Good evening, Bladensburg community representative and members. Thank you for being with us today in the room and online to bring you the latest update on our reconstruction of the Bladensburg Bus Garage project. My name is Maya Nino, and I'm the senior program manager. Next slide, please. Next slide. My name is Maya Nino. I'm the senior program manager with the previous slide. With the project delivery office with Metro. To my right is Ms. Jamila Ahmed Ingram. She is a commercial manager with the PMCM team. To her right, it's Mr. Dan Goucher. He's a project manager with HP, the contractor. And to his right, we have Mr. Sean Pratt. He's a project manager with the PMCM team. Next slide, please. With that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Jamila.
Thank you, Maya, and good evening. Next slide, please. So at our last meeting, we shared a project overview, details regarding the paint booth at Bladensburg Bus Garage, construction progress and schedule, and as always, you can visit the project website for a recording as well as the questions and answers that we addressed. Next slide, please. So we always like to begin with a project overview, especially for those of you who are joining for the very first time. The project will include a new maintenance facility, parking for 300 buses, charging infrastructure and equipment to support battery electric buses, and a parking garage for 420 employees. In regard to the project schedule, the team continues to assess another time extension to account for potential delays. Once complete, we'll update the community. So with that in mind, here is our current project schedule. The project is being constructed in 3 phases. We are currently in the first phase shown in blue, which consists of the replacement of the maintenance facility. This will take place from July 2021 to January 2025. And the timeline for this will likely be extended, but we'll update the community once that's finalized. During the second phase, shown in green, we will focus on building the employee parking garage, as well as some bus parking on ground level. This takes place from February 2025 to September 2026. And during the third phase in orange, we will complete the bus parking area, and this takes place from September 26 to June 2027. Next slide, please. So we continue to maintain our best practices for cleanliness and noise control on the site. This includes daily cleaning of work areas, waste receptacles and dumpsters stationed throughout the site, and tying down items to prevent flying debris during inclement weather. Also, the site contains DOEE-approved water runoff controls. We wash muddy construction vehicle wheels to help keep the streets clean and still have access to an on-site street sweeper. We pick up trash weekly near the construction entrances as well. And in regards to noise control, the typical weekday crew hours remain from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and we limit hours of oversized load deliveries. Next slide, please. So the site, it's bound by 25th Place Northeast, Bladensburg Road Northeast, Douglas Street Northeast, and the railroad tracks. In regards to construction traffic flow, Gate 1 serves as the primary construction entrance. Gate 4 on 25th Place Northeast serves as the main construction entrance. Gate 1 is also still in use. Gate 2 remains as a secondary entrance, which is along Bladensburg Road Northeast. In regards to parking, areas designated for contractors' personal vehicles includes 2122, 24th Place Northeast, and along B Street Northeast. This month, we do expect for the properties near 28th Street Northeast to open back up for limited contractor parking as well. Next slide, please. So on this slide, I'll highlight the newest updates for our permitting status shown in yellow, and this includes continued coordination with DDOT for the closure of the Douglas Street cul-de-sac, discussing Phase 2 and Phase 3 plan reviews with DC Water, and completing a pre-construction meeting and field walk for a new gas line for the CNG yard with Washington Gas. Next slide, please. So this quarter, WMATA held the inaugural Metro Fest to connect with the community, and the event was free to the public and featured food and fascinating ways to engage with Metro, such as climbing aboard the bus into the operator seat of Metro's new battery electric bus. We also released the quarterly newsletter, which had construction updates, trivia, and the people behind the project section, which featured Maya this time. Next slide, please. Now, coming up on August 17th, the Metro Transit Police Department is hosting a back-to-school event with free school supplies, giveaways, and activities for children like a moon bounce. So with that, I will pass it back to Donzel.
Thank you, Jamila. Any questions regarding the project overview or overall update? All right, seeing none, I'll turn it over to, oh, sorry, one online. All right, Marcy, if you could please come off mute.
Yes, I'm off mute. Good evening. So did you want me to wait till the end? Because I can.
If you have a question regarding the project overview, go ahead and ask it. If, you know, the next section will be the construction, and then we have another final section if you want to ask then. But if you want to ask now, you can.
I can wait. Thank you. So you know what? This is what I didn't see. And thank you for taking the time for this. So was there environmental impact study done? And if it was, can I have a copy? Because I don't think I received one. And I understand when you environmental impact study, was that actually given out? Was there any way I can review that?
So the documents, yeah, the documents for the project are on the project website. What we'll do is we have a technical person that is operating the room. She will reach out to get your contact information, and we will work to make sure you get the documents, or at least point you to where the documents are located on the site.
And number two, so all the buses are going to be electric, or how many, and what's the percentage of the buses that are going to be still gasoline? Because, you know, I am worried about the fumes in the environment. So what's the ratio of gas versus electric buses?
Do you want to?
So we have about 50% of the fleet that will be electric upon opening, with plans to fully move to zero emission in the future. The other half will be a mix between CNG and diesel. It depends on the bus fleet that we have at that point. So we don't have an exact number, how many buses is going to be diesel or CNG, but it's going to be 50% roughly of the total fleet. So the total electric 150 buses, and the other 150 will be mixed between CNG and clean diesel and hybrid.
All right, thank you. That's it for the moment.
Thank you. With that, I'll turn over to Dan for construction update. Next slide.
Next slide. Thanks, Donzel. Thanks for everybody joining on the call and here in the room. So we'll go through some of the features of the building. I know everybody's eager to hear about kind of phase two. So here's kind of a snapshot into what phase two is going to look like. We do have a parking garage. We have revised this design a little bit. You can see from the 3 images on the screen, we have basically a 2-level parking garage. You have 2 levels of actual parking, and then you have on the top level, you have a green roof. A little bit hard to see on the slide, but that view on the top or the right-hand side is all the green area. And then just on the bottom there is just an elevation view. So you'll have all the buses parked on the kind of the ground floor. The personally owned vehicles will come up to that 2nd level, the one right above the ground floor through the ramp, and then they'll be able to park there. Next slide. So a little bit about BEB and how that design is going. So you can see here, most of the site will be covered with steel. It's going to be a simple joist and steel column structure that will support all the overhead pantographs. The 2 blue boxes there are where all of the charging equipment and electrical infrastructure will be staged. So those are actually above the buses. We have 2 of them down in the red box where it's labeled acquired property. So I know there's some interest around what's happening in that property. So I just want to point out for the time being, it will be for our phase 2 construction trailers. And then at the time when we move those trailers, we will then install concrete pads, and there will be 6 2-megawatt generators there to kind of support resiliency for the electric buses. The other thing I want to point out here is up in red at the top of the screen, it says anticipated PEPCO feed. So the site has 2 feeds, one for the maintenance building and the parking garage, and then a completely separate feed for the BEP. And right now, through the early coordination with PEPCO, they're indicating that there is a current line that runs through kind of down 26th Street that we will be able to tie into. So those are some of the key aspects of the BEP design right now. Next slide. So you can see here, this is a 3D model, 3D rendering of the parking garage and all of the support steel for all of the conduits, the electrical charging, the pantographs. You can see it's pretty extensive. And then on top of this, there will be some solar. Next slide. And again, here's an elevation of kind of how it looks. So you can see the pantographs are those little arms that you see in the picture connecting to the top of the bus. On the right-hand side, you can see that that's where the parking garage is. So next slide. So as I talked about the acquired property, that small image on the left-hand side is kind of currently where we have some of our construction trailers. So you can see the 2 screenshots of the underground utilities. Those need to go in to complete all the underground utilities. So we are taking those out and we're moving them over to the acquired property. And you can see in the right-hand side there, kind of the plan for that. We will have we'll keep parking there, but we'll have some additional trailers to support phase 2 construction. Next slide. So this was the demo, kind of starting from left to right. You can see the building was taken down. Kind of in the middle there, they're sorting and hauling off all of the demo material. This is to achieve additional LEED credits. So we did segregate all of the material to have it recycled. And then on the right-hand side there is pretty much the finished product. Next slide. So this is the ramp. So as we were talking about the parking garage, I mentioned that there is a ramp that goes up to that, I guess that 1st level right above the ground floor or 2nd level. This is also where the CXX wall, so you can remember during previous quarterly meetings, we discussed this wall. You can see, just want to remind everybody, you can't see the back of the wall. You can see kind of in all of those pictures, the dirt on the top of that wall is kind of right up to the top of that wall. So anybody behind that wall can't see it. And then you can see the construction of the ramp going in from left to right. That's the abutment ramp that then transitions into cast in place deck with columns and beams. And you can see all the footers going kind of towards phase 2. Next slide. So big milestone for the site. We did start paving. So when I say paving, this is concrete paving. So it's a little bit more challenging, more challenging than just your regular asphalt paving. You can kind of see the prep work here. So starting on the left-hand side, we were putting down all of the sub base. We have our trench drain going in, And then in the middle there, you can see we have all the reinforcing. The trench drain's been placed. And then on the right-hand side there is kind of the finished product. That's actually freshly placed concrete. We are paving in 14-foot sections, 14-foot wide sections, anywhere from 100 to 200 linear feet. Right now during the summer months, that kind of keeps our crews right in a sweet spot of not overworking them during the hot mornings, and also meets our production rate that we need. Next slide. Other big milestone we have interior wise, we've started bringing in a lot of like the big equipment. So in this slide here, we just have the first shots of the bus wash. We do have 4 lanes of bus washing. You can kind of see the 3 here. All 4 lanes will look exactly the same. And what you're seeing here is just the dryers that dry off the buses as they exit. Next slide. Another big piece of equipment, or pieces of equipment that have shown up, of all of our vehicle lifts. These are 2 examples. So we'll call them 2 different style lifts. You have what these are called the skyjacks, where the bus actually drives on with their wheels, and the whole lift lifts up, kind of in the right-hand picture there, and then they can work on it. Then the other style lift is more of a kind of a piston-driven lift, where you don't have that whole apparatus. It just lifts up by the axle. And then also you can see on the right-hand side of this picture is where the paint booth is. So this area is called the paint and prep area. So anytime there's minor repairs or minor dings, dents, this is kind of where they go to get touched up. Next slide. So here's the paint booth. Couple kind of in-progress shots. On the left-hand side, you can see some of the ceiling lights are missing, and then the right-hand side, you can kind of see most of it's in. I just want to remind everybody, last quarter, we did talk extensively about the paint booth. I know there are some concerns about mitigating fumes. I will say that paint booths are heavily regulated. There are several NFPA and safety codes that regulate that. Also, DOE has permitted this paint booth. So within the 19-page DOE permit, there are maintenance requirements, operation requirements. They will do normal checkups, as well as they list out all of the permissible VOC contents for material being used in there. In addition, the paint booth does have an exhaust fan, again, that has several layers of filters in it to comply with the DOE permit. Next slide. In the interior, again, lots happened in the interior. You can see here we're putting final coat, finished paint colors on the wall. This is all the first coats yet. We won't put the final coat until the very end. All the ceiling grids going in. So what this does is it allows all the trades that have ceiling mounted equipment to start their install, like fire alarms, duct registers, lights. So all of that's been going on. Next slide. And then the elevator also has showed up. So you can see 2 shots here. They have all their rail in. They have their temporary cab built, so they can kind of ride up and down the shaft as they build out the shaft. Next slide. And then in the boiler room, again, this is kind of the heart of the building. There's a lot of chilling. This is where all the chilled water comes from. Several pumps, the boilers. You can see kind of just the action shots from the left to the right, just how much progress has been made. All of the pipes are insulated. And then at this point, Pepco has provided us power. We are energized. And again, let me just remind everybody, we have 2 feeds to the building. So when I'm talking about this energization, this is just for the building. It's not for the BEB, but we do have power. So this is our first area that we are actually going to start pushing power so we can get all the pumps up and running to start circulating cold water, so we can start conditioning some of those finished spaces, which allows us to bring in some of the cabinetry, the floor finishes, some of those other temperature sensitive material. I think with that, I will turn it back over to Donzel for questions. We got 2 more?
Any questions regarding the construction update, online or in person? Also, for those in person, if you came in after we started, if you could please be sure to sign in. Fill out the sign-in sheet. We greatly appreciate it. Mr. Montague. Yes. There are no questions online, but there are some.
A couple of things. The explanation, people, you know what a pantograph is. Most people don't, okay? So comment was made that it looked like trolley buses. And so people need to know that it's actually pantographs drop from the ceiling to the collector plate on the bus. So you need to at least kind of clarify that.
Yeah, so when they're trying, yeah, I guess I don't know. It's how they charge. So the bus will pull into their spot. This apparatus will drop down from the ceiling or the structure, that structural steel, and it'll make contact with some rails on top of the bus, and that's how they will charge. And then when the bus is charged, it will retract itself back up, and the bus can pull off or pull out.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same concept, but this is just on a higher scale, I guess.
So the next thing is, hold on, because I actually wrote it down. Oh, in the maintenance area. So the buses have equipment on top. We said the collector plate for the pantograph, but there's also air conditioning units that are on top of the bus as opposed to under. CNGs have inflatable tanks and this, that, and the other. But I didn't see in your drawings any provision for gantries or a way to get, for workers to get up to that. So is that part of, am I too ahead of the game or?
I think it's the
asking
right
wrong?
question. He's wondering, human access to the top of the bus, has that been installed or is there consideration for that?
I don't entirely understand the operations of WMATA, so I can try to give my best guess, but I know what you were seeing on that screen was all the exterior. That's only for where they charge. They won't maintain buses out there. They'll have to pull into the garage and kind of get the maintenance that they need in there. I do believe in there I think there are movable like scaffold ladders that allow access to the top of the buses.
So Dan, has the construction component of the maintenance bay started yet?
Yes.
And that's what you were looking for pictures of?
Yeah, so that's,
Oh,
what-
okay.
that's what I'm asking, because now you said that there's movable scaffolding, which is probably okay. But like on the rail side, they literally have platforms built around where you have the lift so that you would it would be fixed and you'd be able to go and get to the top of the bus. So I didn't see that. So I'm just saying, ask that question, how that's going to be addressed. Is it so that you don't get, we weren't told?
No, we have it addressed. I guess I just did show pictures of it. Like I said, we have fall protection guide rails over top of all the buses that have trolleys so that the folks working on the buses can get on top and do what they need to. I just can't speak specifically to what all they have to go do.
We'll add that element to the next presentation to make sure that it's in there. Thank you for that question. A question online?
From Commissioner Manning, is all maintenance done in the garage?
Yeah, so
To my knowledge, yes, all the maintenance is done inside the garage.
The routine maintenance will be done in the garage.
Okay.
Any overhaul will go to another facility, Andrews, right? Heavy overhaul.
Right, so any maintenance done at the facility is indoors. Any larger maintenance will be done at a different site.
He has his hand raised now, so.
Oh, Commissioner Manning?
Yeah.
She has it.
Oh, she
Chairman
is, sorry.
Manning, if you can come off mute.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for acknowledging me. I just want to clarify that what Commissioner Montague just asked as far as the maintenance. And I also, are those garages almost ready? So how the operation, because you're giving us information and there's no picture. And I just want to be clear that we're understanding what you're saying. But for the record, because I'm just trying to figure out, are you all using those are the garages finished first of all?
Right, so I think I understand your question, Chairman. If I don't get it right, please jump in. So Dan, let me put it in two parts. First part is, what percentage of completion would you say the actual garage itself is?
Schedule-wise, we're about 60% done. So yes, we're substantially done within the garage. itself, the maintenance bays, and like I said, right now they're putting in all of the lifts.
And when would the garages be activated? Like, when would buses start going in and out of it?
That would be at
So
turnover.
right now, based on the schedule, we showed it was January. We're working on a time extension. It's, you know, it's probably going to be second quarter of '25.
Okay.
Okay, so when you say second quarter, then you say January, you talking about January 25. But if you're 60%, if 60% of it is done, and also, so most of, and those bigger jobs are not going to be done at this location anyway. So anything, okay, just want to point of clarification with that. So anything in the, I'll get the information about the emission to make sure it's clear, because electric will reduce some of the emission in the air in the area. That's it for me right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Manning. So with that, I'll return it to Jamila for the look ahead.
Thank you, Donzel. Next slide, please. So I'll highlight some of the next steps for the project from September to November. In September, inside of the building, we will work on installing various pieces of equipment, such as the elevator cab, bus lift, and overhead crane. Also, on the building site, we have more site grading and paving to do, plus precast deck installation for the north parking ramp. In October, we will continue pulling wire and continue some work in the building for interior finishes. On the building site, we will continue with paving and grading, as well as apply terracotta panels to the north parking ramp. Commissioning activities will take place as well. And in November, we will continue building finishes, site paving, north parking ramp work, and commissioning as well. Next slide, please. Here are the major milestones in place for now. As I mentioned earlier, the project schedule is being evaluated for impacts. However, currently, milestones include completing the new maintenance facility in the first quarter of 2025, commencing demolition for phase 2 in the second quarter of 2025, completing the new parking garage in the third quarter of 2026, and overall project completion in the second quarter of 2027. And we'll continue to update the community in future meetings once we finalize our time extension analysis. And with that, I will pass it to Maya. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamila. So in closing, how to follow up on the project in between the community meetings. This is probably more helpful for the newer members, but as just a reminder, you can always email us with any questions, any comments, any concerns at bladensburgbusgarage@wamata.com. As Ms. Jamila mentioned earlier, our website, wamata.com/bladensburgbusgarage, you can find this deck and previous slide decks for our community meetings, environmental reports, and all other information, timeline can be accessed, and any updates. You can find it at our website. And lastly, we will, as we get closer to the fall, we'll be announcing the next meeting date. And please do follow us at the various media sites listed below. And that's it. I'll turn it over to Mr. Denzel.
Thank you. So before we close out, I want to see if there are any final questions. So if you're online, feel free again to raise your hand and say you have a question, and we'll get to you. And with that, Mr. Marnigan.
It's me again. I know Sean will say this is not our problem, but we're saying that the building will, let's say the building will be ready June 2025, okay, at worst case. We don't have 150 electric buses. So this is a contractual question. Will the building be commissioned regardless of whether or not the electric buses are present?
Yes.
Okay, so you all treat those two as separate entities. So I'm not going to ask that other question. question, because that's gonna open the door for some.
Well, I'm just gonna say thank you. Any online questions? No online questions? All right, so with that, again, there are evaluations here. Please, if you can fill it out, the evaluation. The purpose of the evaluation is to see how the meeting was conducted beyond the content of the meeting. If you're online, there should be a link placed in the chat for that evaluation. If you could please fill that out and get it back to us. If you're in the room, fill it out before you leave. There are pens. Our next quarterly meeting will be in the winter, in the fall, or it is summer. I'm skipping a season, sorry. In the fall, and thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your week and evening. Good night.